Alex had always wondered what might have been. Growing up in a quiet suburban neighborhood, his childhood was marked by laughter, secrets, and an unspoken longing he didn't fully understand until years later. Ethan was everything to him. His best friend, his confidant, and the boy who unknowingly held his heart. Back then, Alex chalked up his fluttering nerves and stolen glances to the intensity of friendship, not daring to imagine it could be something more. The two had been inseparable, spending long summer days exploring the woods behind their houses or lounging by the creek, dreaming about the future. But time and distance had a way of unraveling even the strongest bonds. When Ethan's family moved away during high school, Alex didn't just lose his best friend, he lost a piece of himself. Years later, Alex found himself in a stable relationship with James, a kind and supportive partner who gave him everything he thought he needed. James was safe, steady in a way that Alex valued. But in the quiet moments, when the house was still and the hum of routine settled around them, Alex's mind would drift back to Ethan. What would he look like now? Did he ever think of their childhood the way Alex did? The questions felt foolish, even selfish, but they lingered, refusing to be silenced. It was during a wedding for a mutual friend that Alex's carefully curated life began to unravel. He hadn't expected Ethan to be there. They hadn't spoken in over a decade. Yet as Alex scanned the room, his heart skipped at the sight of him. Ethan stood near the bar, laughing with a group of people, his easy charm unmistakable. He was taller than Alex remembered, broader in the shoulders, and carried himself with a quiet confidence that made him impossible to ignore. Alex hesitated, suddenly unsure of what to say after so many years. But Ethan noticed him almost immediately, his face lighting up with recognition. "Alex?" Ethan's voice was warm, familiar yet deeper, laced with surprise and something that felt like relief. "Ethan," Alex replied, his own voice catching in his throat. They embraced briefly, the gesture awkward yet meaningful. As they pulled apart, Ethan grinned, and it was like the years melted away. "It's been forever. You look great." Alex laughed nervously, running a hand through his hair. "You too. I almost didn't recognize you." The conversation flowed easily, as if no time had passed. They reminisced about their childhood adventures, shared embarrassing stories, and filled in the gaps of the years they'd missed. Ethan was now a graphic designer living in the city, openly gay and thriving in a way that made Alex both happy and envious. As the evening wore on, Alex found himself drawn to Ethan's energy, the way he made every moment feel charged with possibility. For the first time in years, Alex felt truly seen. But beneath the surface of their laughter and shared memories, a new tension began to emerge, one that Alex couldn't ignore. Ethan's gaze lingered a little too long, his compliments carrying a weight that was hard to dismiss. And Alex, despite himself, found his own responses tinged with something more than nostalgia. He hated how easily his thoughts betrayed him, how quickly he felt himself slipping into the role of the boy who had once adored Ethan in secret. When James called later that night, checking in after the wedding, Alex's voice faltered. He told himself it was just the surprise of seeing Ethan again, the rush of reconnecting with someone who had once meant so much. But as he lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling, he couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted. Ethan was no longer a distant memory, what if tucked safely into the past. He was here, vibrant and real, pulling Alex back into a version of himself he thought he'd left behind. The thought was thrilling and terrifying. By the time Alex drifted off to sleep, his mind was awash with conflicting emotions. He told himself it was harmless, that reconnecting with Ethan didn't have to mean anything more than friendship. But deep down, he knew the truth. Ethan had always been more than just a friend. As the first threads of morning light filtered through the blinds, Alex resolved to keep things simple, to let the past stay where it belonged. But resolutions had a way of crumbling under the weight of longing, and Alex couldn't help but wonder if this time, fate had brought Ethan back into his life for a reason. The stage is set for a deeper exploration of Alex's internal conflict. The reunion has reignited feelings he thought he'd buried, leaving the reader eager to see how he navigates the tension between his past and present. Alex's resolve to keep things simple didn't last long. After the wedding, Ethan reached out, his message casual yet brimming with familiarity. "It was so good to see you again. Let's grab coffee soon?" Alex hesitated for only a moment before replying, knowing full well the danger of reopening old doors. Their first meeting was at a cozy cafe tucked into a quiet corner of the city. Ethan arrived first, waving Alex over with that same easy smile that had once lit up Alex's childhood. The air between them was charged with a mix of nostalgia and something unspoken, something Alex couldn't, or wouldn't, name. "So," Ethan began, stirring his "Catch me up. What's life like for you now?" Alex found himself talking about James, his career, and the quiet life they had built together. But even as he spoke, he felt a distance in his own words, as if he were describing someone else's life. Ethan listened intently, his gaze unwavering, and when Alex finished, Ethan leaned back and smiled. "You seem happy," Ethan said, though there was a note of curiosity in his voice. "I am," Alex replied too quickly. The conversation shifted to Ethan's life, his work, and his travels, and Alex found himself captivated by the vibrant world Ethan described. It wasn't just the words, it was the way Ethan spoke, with passion and ease, as if life were an adventure waiting to be embraced. Alex couldn't remember the last time he'd felt that kind of excitement. Their meetings became more frequent after that. A quick coffee turned into a stroll through the park, then drinks at a bar Ethan loved. Each encounter brought them closer, peeling back layers of time and formality until they were no longer just two old friends catching up. It was during one of these evenings, while walking along the waterfront, that Ethan turned to Alex and asked the question Alex had been dreading. "Did you ever wonder what it would have been like if we hadn't lost touch?" The words hung in the air, heavy and electric. Alex hesitated, his heart pounding. "I've thought about it," he admitted softly, avoiding Ethan's gaze. Ethan stopped walking, his hand brushing against Alex's arm. "I thought more than I probably should." The moment stretched between them, filled with the sound of waves lapping against the shore. Alex felt the pull, the same magnetic force that had drawn him to Ethan all those years ago. But before he could speak, Ethan stepped back, shaking his head. "I'm sorry," Ethan said, his voice tinged with regret. "I don't want to make things complicated for you." "It's okay," Alex replied, though the words felt hollow. But things were already complicated. Alex's relationship with James began to show cracks. James noticed the late nights, the excuses, and the way Alex seemed distant even when they were together. "Is everything okay?" James asked one evening as they sat on the couch. "Yeah, just work stuff," Alex lied, guilt tightening in his chest. The truth was, Alex felt torn between two worlds, the stability and love James offered and the unshakable pull of his connection with Ethan. He tried to convince himself that it was just nostalgia, a fleeting desire for something he couldn't have. But the more time he spent with Ethan, the more he realized it was something deeper. The tipping point came on a rainy evening. Ethan had invited Alex over to see his new apartment, promising it was just a friendly gesture. But as Alex stood in the warmth of Ethan's living room, surrounded by the scent of fresh coffee and the sound of soft music, the lines between past and present blurred. Ethan handed Alex a mug and sat beside him on the couch, closer than necessary. Their conversation drifted, their laughter softer, their words heavier. When Ethan reached out, his hand brushing Alex's cheek, Alex didn't pull away. "I shouldn't," Alex whispered, but his voice lacked conviction. "Tell me to stop," Ethan said, his voice low, his eyes searching Alex's. Alex couldn't. The kiss was tentative at first, hesitant, but quickly deepened into something fervent, years of suppressed emotions spilling over. When they pulled apart, Alex felt both exhilarated and shattered. "I have to go," he murmured, guilt clawing at him. Ethan nodded, his expression unreadable. "I get it. But, Alex, you deserve to be happy. Whatever that looks like." As Alex left, the rain soaking through his jacket, his mind raced. The kiss had crossed a line he couldn't ignore, forcing him to confront the truth he'd been avoiding. Alex stands at a crossroads, torn between the comfort of his life with James and the undeniable connection he shares with Ethan. The reader is left eager to see which path he will choose and how he will face the consequences of his actions. The weight of Alex's betrayal settled in the pit of his stomach as he drove home. The rain streaked across the windshield, blurring the city lights into an indistinct haze, much like his thoughts. The kiss with Ethan had crossed a line, shattering the fragile boundary Alex had tried to maintain. He told himself it was a mistake, but the truth burned deeper. He had wanted it, and worse, he couldn't bring himself to regret it. When Alex walked through the door of the apartment he shared with James, the air felt heavier than usual. James sat on the couch, scrolling through his phone, but he glanced up when Alex entered. "You're late," he said, his tone casual yet laced with curiosity. "Yeah, sorry," Alex replied, shrugging off his damp jacket. "Lost track of time." James studied him for a moment, his brow furrowing. "You've been distracted lately. Is something going on?" The question hit harder than Alex expected. He opened his mouth to deny it, but the weight of the evening made lying impossible. "I don't know," he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. James's expression softened, but his concern deepened. "Alex, talk to me. If something's wrong, we can work through it. But I need to know what's going on." The urge to confess surged within Alex, but fear held him back. He wasn't ready to face the full scope of what he'd done or what it meant for their relationship. "It's just stress," he lied again, his heart sinking further. "Work's been crazy." James nodded slowly, though his eyes lingered on Alex, searching for something unsaid. "Okay," he said finally, though his tone suggested he didn't fully believe him. The days that followed were a blur of guilt and indecision. Alex tried to throw himself into his routine with James, hoping to quiet the storm raging inside him, but every interaction felt hollow. Ethan's words echoed in his mind, "You deserve to be happy. Whatever that looks like." One evening, Alex found himself back at the waterfront, the place where Ethan had first voiced his feelings. He stood staring out at the water, the wind biting at his skin, when he heard a familiar voice behind him. "I thought I might find you here," Ethan said, his tone cautious. Alex turned, his chest tightening at the sight of him. "Ethan, I shouldn't have come." "But you did." Ethan stepped closer, his hands in his pockets. "Alex, I'm not here to pressure you. I can't stop thinking about you. It's about us." "There is no us," Alex said, though his voice wavered. "I'm with James. He's been there for me, through everything." "And does he make you happy?" Ethan's question was gentle but piercing. Alex hesitated, the truth cutting through him like a blade. "He's good to me. He's steady." "I don't know if that's enough anymore." Ethan nodded, his gaze steady. "I get it. You have to decide what you want, Alex. I can't be the one to tell you. But whatever you choose, don't stay in something that doesn't feel right, whether it's with him or with me." The honesty in Ethan's words left Alex reeling. He wanted so desperately for someone to tell him what to do, to absolve him of the responsibility of choosing. But deep down, he knew the choice was his alone. When Alex returned home, James was waiting for him, his expression unreadable. "We need to talk," James said, his voice calm but firm. Alex felt his stomach drop. "What about?" James sighed, his shoulders slumping. "I'm not stupid, Alex. I know something's been going on. Maybe you haven't acted on it, but you're not here with me anymore." "Not fully." The words cut deeper than Alex expected. He took a shaky breath and nodded. "You're right," he said, his voice trembling. "There's someone else. I didn't mean for it to happen, but it did." James closed his eyes, pain flickering across his face. "I knew it," he murmured, more to himself than to Alex. After a moment, he opened his eyes and met Alex's gaze. "Do you love him?" The question hung in the air, and Alex realized he didn't have an answer. I don't know, he admitted. But I know I haven't been fair to you, and I'm sorry. James nodded, his jaw tightening. I deserve better than this, Alex. And so do you if he's what you want. The conversation ended with quiet finality. Alex packed a bag that night and left, the weight of his decision pressing down on him. In the days that followed, Alex met Ethan again. Their connection was still there, still electric, but the path ahead felt uncertain. As they sat together, watching the sun dip below the horizon, Alex realized that the road he had chosen wouldn't be easy. But for the first time in years, it felt like his own.